I sat in my kitchen, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee, just staring at the wall. The house was too quiet. You know that kind of silence? The kind that feels heavy, like the air is pressing down on you. My husband, Mark, had left just 3 hours ago. I'd kissed him goodbye at the door, straightened his tie, and watched him load his suitcase into the Uber. He was headed to Chicago for a week, big conference. He was nervous, but I told him he was gonna crush it. "Call me when you land," I said. "Always, babe," he promised, giving me that crooked smile I fell in love with 10 years ago. So when the phone rang at 10:30 a.m., I assumed it was him letting me know he'd made it to the gate or that his flight was delayed. I picked it up without even looking at the screen. "Hey, did you forget something?" I asked, laughing a little. But it wasn't Mark. "Mrs. Dalton," a woman's voice, sharp, professional but tense. "This is Shelley, the branch manager at First National Bank on Main Street." My stomach did a little flip, not a big one yet, just a warning tremor. "Yes, is something wrong with our account?" There was a pause, a long, uncomfortable pause, the kind where you can hear the person on the other end taking a breath. "Mrs. Dalton, I'm looking at you right now," Shelley said. I froze. I literally froze, the coffee cup hovering halfway to my mouth. "Excuse me," I said, my voice dropping. "What do you mean you're looking at me?" "You're sitting in my office," Shelley said, her voice lowering to a whisper. "Or someone claiming to be you is sitting in my office with your husband." My heart stopped. It just stopped beating. The room started to spin a little. "That's impossible," I stammered. "Mark is on a plane. He's going to Chicago. I saw him leave." "Mrs. Dalton," Shelley said, urgency creeping into her tone now. "Mark is here. He's sitting right across from me, and the woman with him, she has your ID, she has your social security number. She looks very much like the photo we have on file, but something felt off. That's why I'm calling the number we have on record." I stood up so fast my chair scrapped loudly against the floor. "Don't let them leave," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm coming down there. Do not let them leave." "Please hurry," Shelley said. I hung up. I stood there for a second, just blinking. My brain couldn't process it. Mark, at the bank, with another woman. No, not just another woman, a woman who looked like me, a woman pretending to be me. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped them twice before I could unlock the car. I slammed the door shut and jammed the key in the ignition. The bank was only 10 minutes away, but that drive felt like it took 10 years. I kept calling Mark's phone, over and over. Ring, ring, ring. "Hi, this is Mark. Leave a message." Ring, ring, ring. "Hi, this is Mark." Why wasn't he answering? If he was at the bank, his phone should be ringing right there in his pocket, unless he silenced it, unless he was ignoring me. Every red light felt like a personal attack. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. My mind was racing, coming up with a million scenarios, each one crazier than the last. Maybe it wasn't Mark. Maybe his identity was stolen too. Maybe someone kidnapped him. That had to be it. He wouldn't lie to me. We'd been married a decade. We didn't have secrets. We shared our location on our phones, for crying out loud. I grabbed my phone at the next red light to check his location. Location paused. My heart dropped into my stomach. He had turned it off. He never turned it off. Even when his battery was low, he'd send a text saying, "Phone dying, love you." This was deliberate. I slammed my foot on the gas the second the light turned green. I didn't care about the speed limit. I needed to see his face. I needed to know what was happening. I pulled into the bank parking lot, tires screeching a little. I saw his car. Wait. I saw his car. He had taken an Uber this morning. I watched him get into a silver Toyota Camry. I waved at the driver. But there, parked in the third row, was Mark's black SUV. He hadn't gone to the airport. He had driven his car here. I felt like I was gonna be sick. The betrayal hit me first, hot and sharp. He lied. He didn't go to Chicago, he was here. But the fear was right behind it. Who was the woman? Why did the bank manager say she looked like me? I ran toward the glass doors of the bank. I didn't even lock my car. I burst through the doors, breathless, my hair a mess, wearing the yoga pants and hoodie I'd put on after he left. The bank was quiet. A few people were in line at the tellers, looking bored. But straight ahead, in the glass-walled office at the back, I saw them. I saw the back of Mark's head. I'd know that haircut anywhere. I cut it for him during the lockdown, and I've been trimming the edges ever since. He was wearing his travel suit, the navy one. And next to him, I stopped walking. I felt the air leave my lungs. From the back, the woman looked exactly like me. She had the same honey blonde hair, cut to the same shoulder length. She was wearing a beige trench coat. I had a beige trench coat hanging in my closet. They were leaning in, looking at papers on the desk. Shelley, the manager, looked up and saw me standing in the lobby. Her eyes went wide. She stood up slowly. Mark turned around. Our eyes locked through the glass. For a second, I expected him to look guilty. I expected him to look panicked, like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. But he didn't. He looked annoyed. He said something to the woman next to him. She turned around too. And that's when my legs almost gave out. It wasn't me, obviously, but she was. Close, terrifyingly close, same hair color, same build. She was wearing sunglasses, so I couldn't see her eyes, but the shape of her face, the way she held her head. It was like looking at a distorted mirror. I marched toward the office. I didn't care who was watching. I pushed the glass door open. "Mark," I said. My voice sounded small, strangled. "What is going on?" Mark looked at me. Then he looked at the bank manager, then back at me. "Can I help you?" he asked. I froze. "Excuse me," I whispered. "I said, can I help you?" Mark repeated. His voice was cold, not angry, just indifferent, like he was talking to a stranger who cut in line. "We're in the middle of a meeting here." I stared at him. My mouth opened, but no words came out. This was my husband. The man who made me pancakes yesterday morning. The man I'd slept next to for 3,650 nights. "Mark, stop it," I said, my voice shaking. "It's me, Sarah. Why aren't you on the plane? Who is this?" I pointed at the woman. The woman took off her sunglasses. She had blue eyes. Mine were green, but she had done her makeup exactly like I do. Heavy liner on the top lid, none on the bottom. She looked at me with a confused, pitying smile. "Honey," the woman said. She reached out and touched Mark's arm, a casual, intimate touch. "Do you know her?" Mark shook his head. "Never seen her before in my life." The room went silent. I could hear the hum of the computer monitor on the desk. "What?" I screamed. I couldn't help it. "What do you mean you've never seen me? I'm your wife. Mark, stop playing games. This isn't funny." I turned to the bank manager. "Shelley, right? You called me. You know I'm Sarah Dalton." Shelley looked terrified. She looked back and forth between me and the woman in the chair. I don't know," Shelley stammered. "Mr. Dalton, this is the woman I spoke to on the phone, the number on your account." Mark sighed. He looked exhausted. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "My wife is sitting right here," he said, gesturing to the woman in the trench coat. "We're trying to close our joint account because we're moving. I don't know who this crazy lady is, but she's clearly disturbed." "Crazy lady?" I stepped forward, my hands clenched into fists. "I am not crazy. We live at 42 Oakwood Drive. Your mother's name is Patricia. We have a dog named Buster. You have a scar on your left knee from a bike accident when you were 12. I was shouting the facts like bullets, trying to shatter whatever insane game he was playing. The woman, the fake Sarah, laughed softly. "Wow," she said. "She really did her homework, didn't she, Mark? Stalkers are getting scary these days." She reached into her purse, a designer purse, one I had wanted for Christmas, but we couldn't afford. She pulled out a wallet and slid a driver's license across the desk to Shelley. "Here is my ID," the woman said calmly. "Sarah Elizabeth Dalton, 42 Oakwood Drive." Shelley picked up the ID. She looked at it. She looked at the woman. Then she looked at me. "Ma'am," Shelley said to me, "do you have identification?" "Yes, of course I do." I dug into my pockets. Empty. I froze. I patted my back pockets, my hoodie pouch. I had left my purse on the kitchen counter. In my panic to get here, in my rush to stop them, I had grabbed my keys and phone, but my wallet was still sitting next to the coffee maker. I forgot it, I whispered. I was in a rush because you called me and told me my husband was here. Mark shook his head. Look, he said to the manager, this is getting ridiculous. She has no ID. She's harassing us. Can you please call security? We just want to take our money and leave. Take our money, I snapped. You're trying to drain our savings. Mark, that's our house money. That's for the renovation. Security, Mark yelled, his voice booming. 2 uniformed guards appeared at the doorway of the office. Please escort this woman out, Mark said, pointing at me. He wouldn't even look me in the eye anymore. He was looking at his watch. Ma'am, you need to come with us, one of the guards said, reaching for my arm. No, don't touch me. I yanked my arm away. Call the police. I want the police here right now. He's stealing my identity. He's stealing my money. We've already called them, Shelley said softly. They're on their way. Good, I yelled. Good, because when they get here, they'll scan my fingerprints. You can't fake fingerprints. The fake Sarah leaned forward. She looked right at me, and for a second her face changed. The sweet, confused look vanished. Her eyes went hard, cold, a predator looking at prey. She mouthed 3 words to me. No sound, just the movement of her lips. Go home, Sarah. A chill ran down my spine so violent I actually shivered. She knew exactly who I was. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a prank. This was a setup. Why are you doing this? I whispered, tears finally spilling over. Mark, please, why? Mark ignored me. He turned back to Shelley. How much longer for the withdrawal? We have a flight to catch. A flight, I choked out. You said you were going to Chicago. We're going to Rio, the fake Sarah said, smiling sweetly again. Second honeymoon, isn't that right, honey? Can't wait, Mark said. I felt like I was in a nightmare, a waking nightmare. The man I loved, the man I trusted with my life, was sitting there erasing me. He was replacing me, literally replacing me with a copy. The police arrived 5 minutes later. 2 officers, one older, one younger. They walked into the office, bringing a blast of cold air with them. What seems to be the problem? The older officer asked. This woman is harassing us, Mark said immediately, standing up and offering his hand to the officer. I'm Mark Dalton. This is my wife, Sarah. He pointed to the fake. We're trying to handle some banking and this person barged in claiming to be my wife. The officer looked at me. I was a mess. Crying, shaking, wearing sweatpants, hair wild. Then he looked at the fake Sarah. Calm, composed, wearing a trench coat, holding a valid ID. Ma'am, the officer said to me, what's your name? Sarah Dalton, I sobbed. I am Sarah Dalton. He is my husband. He's lying. I don't know who she is, but she's not his wife. ID, the officer asked. I left it at home, I cried. But you can check my records, ask him questions, ask him about our wedding, ask him what I got him for his birthday. The officer looked skeptical. Sir, can you verify anything she's saying? Mark looked at me with that same blank stare. I don't know how she knows my name. Maybe she dug through our trash, stole some mail. We've had some mail theft in the neighborhood recently. That is a lie, I screamed. I'm your wife. The younger officer stepped closer to me. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice. I can prove it. I scrambled for my phone. I have photos. I have thousands of photos of us on my phone. I pulled my phone out. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it again. I unlocked it and opened my gallery. I scrolled to the album, Mark and Me. I tapped it. It was empty. I blinked. I tapped recently deleted. Empty. What? I whispered. No, 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 no. I went to my Instagram. I opened my profile. User not found. My Facebook app had logged me out. When I tried to log back in, account does not exist. I looked up, horror washing over me. He wiped my phone. How did he wipe my phone? Then I remembered. Last night. My phone was acting weird, I whispered. You told me to update it. You said you'd help me back it up to the cloud while I was showering. I looked at Mark. He was just watching me. He had access. He had my passwords. He had everything. He deleted them, I told the officer, my voice sounding crazy even to my own ears. He erased me. He deleted all the photos last night. The officer sighed. Ma'am, without ID and with the gentleman here identifying his wife. He gestured to the woman holding the ID. I'm gonna have to ask you to step outside. If you continue to cause a scene, we'll have to arrest you for disturbing the peace. Arrest me? I couldn't believe this. He's stealing our life savings. It's a joint account, Shelley spoke up, her voice trembling. And both account holders are present to sign for the withdrawal. The identification matches. Shelley was giving up. She was scared. She saw the police siding with Mark and she folded. Shelley, please, I begged. You called me. You said she looked suspicious. I must have been mistaken, Shelley said, looking down at her desk. The ID is valid. The security questions were answered correctly. What security questions? I asked. Mother's maiden name, the fake Sarah said smugly. Pet's name, high school mascot. She knew it all. I felt defeated. I felt small. The walls were closing in. Come on, ma'am, the officer said, grabbing my elbow firmly. Let's go. I didn't fight this time. I let them drag me out of the office. As I was being pulled through the doorway, I looked back one last time. Mark wasn't looking at me. He was signing a paper. But the woman, the fake Sarah, she was watching me, and as the glass door swung shut, she winked. A slow, deliberate wink. The officers walked me out to the parking lot. Go home, ma'am, the older officer said. Sleep it off. If you come back here, you're going to jail. But I live with him, I cried. If I go home, what happens when he comes back? He said they're moving, the officer shrugged. Sounds like a civil matter, get a lawyer, but stay away from the bank. They got in their cruiser and waited, watching me, making sure I left. I got into my car. I sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel, trying to breathe. I felt like I was drowning. How could this happen? How could 10 years vanish in 10 minutes? I started the car and drove out of the lot. I didn't go far. I pulled into the gas station across the street and parked behind the car wash where they couldn't see me. I waited. 10 minutes later, Mark and the woman walked out of the bank. They were carrying 2 large briefcases. Cash. They had cashed out everything. They walked to Mark's SUV. He opened the door for her. He looked. Happy, relieved. They got in and drove off. I waited a few seconds, then I pulled out. I had to follow them. I had to know where they were going. They didn't go toward the airport. They didn't go toward our house. They headed toward the highway, north. I stayed 3 cars back. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I had no plan. I had no weapon. I had no proof. All I had was my gut telling me that if I let them go now, I would never see Mark or my money again. We drove for 40 minutes. The city faded into suburbs, and the suburbs faded into empty roads and woods. Where were they going? Suddenly, Mark's blinker went on. He turned down a dirt road, a fire trail. I hesitated. If I followed them down there, they'd see me. It was just a dirt track into the forest. But I couldn't stop. I turned off my headlights, even though it was daytime, trying to be as invisible as possible. I waited 30 seconds, then turned down the dirt road. I drove slowly. The gravel crunched loudly under my tires. The trees were thick here, blocking out the sun. It felt ominous. About a mile in, I saw brake lights ahead. I slammed on my brakes and killed the engine. Mark's SUV was parked in front of an old, abandoned cabin. It looked like something out of a horror movie. Peeling paint, boarded up windows. Mark got out of the car. The woman got out too. But they weren't carrying the briefcases. They were arguing. I cracked my window down just an inch to listen. The wind carried their voices. You said it would be clean. The woman, fake Sarah, was yelling. Her voice wasn't sweet anymore. It was harsh. She showed up. She wasn't supposed to show up. I handled it, didn't I? Mark yelled back. She's gone. The cops took her. We have the money. She's not stupid, Mark, the woman screamed. She's going to go to the house. She's going to find the basement. My blood ran cold. The basement. Our house didn't have a basement. We lived on a concrete slab in Florida. There was no basement. Unless they weren't talking about our asterisk house. Forget about the basement, Mark said, grabbing her shoulders. We burn this car. We take the other one. We're in Mexico by tomorrow morning. She can't prove anything. I scrubbed her digital life. As far as the world is concerned, Sarah Dalton doesn't exist anymore. He walked to the trunk of the SUV. He popped it open. He pulled out a red gas can. He was going to burn the car. But then, something I never expected happened. A third person walked out of the abandoned cabin. I gasped and ducked down in my seat. It was a man, tall, broad shoulders, wearing a suit that looked way too expensive for the woods. He walked up to Mark. Mark froze. He dropped the gas can. Did you get it? The man in the suit asked. His voice was deep, smooth. Yeah, Mark said. He sounded terrified. It's all in the briefcases, $2 million, just like we agreed. Good, the man said. He looked at the fake Sarah. And her, the man asked. She's a loose end, the fake Sarah said, pointing a finger at Mark. My eyes widened. What? Mark said, stumbling back. Wait, no, we're partners. We're doing this together. The fake Sarah laughed. It was a cruel, ugly sound. Oh, Mark, you really are an idiot. You thought I was just an actor. You thought I was just helping you steal from your wife. She reached into her trench coat. She pulled out a gun. I'm not Sarah, she said, and I'm not sharing the money. Bang. She fired. Mark dropped to the ground. I screamed. I couldn't help it. It was a reflex. A loud, piercing scream inside my car. The fake Sarah's head snapped toward the trees, toward my car. Someone's here, the man in the suit said calmly. He started walking toward me. I fumbled for my keys. I dropped them on the floor mat. No, no, no. I sobbed, reaching down, my fingers scrambling in the dark footwell. I heard footsteps crunching on the gravel, getting closer, fast. I found the key. I jammed it in. The engine roared to life. I threw it in reverse. But before I could hit the gas, a hand smashed through my driver's side window. Glass exploded everywhere. A hand grabbed my hair. Gotcha, the man's voice growled. I stared into his eyes, and then I saw the tattoo on his wrist. A small black scorpion. I knew that tattoo. I had seen it before. In an old photo album Mark kept hidden in the attic. A photo of him and his brother who supposedly died in prison 5 years ago. Hello, sister-in-law, the man smiled. Then everything went black. I woke up to the smell of dirt, damp, rotting dirt. My head was pounding, a rhythmic, throbbing pain right behind my eyes. I tried to reach up and touch my forehead, but I couldn't move my hands. I tugged hard. Nothing. My wrists were bound behind my back, zip ties, plastic, tight. I blinked, trying to clear the fog from my brain. It was dark, but not pitch black. A single, bare light bulb hung from a wooden beam above me, swaying slightly. It cast long, creepy shadows against the walls. The walls were made of cinder block, no windows. I was in a basement. I panicked. I tried to scream, but there was tape over my mouth. Thick, silver duct tape. I made a muffled, pathetic sound. MMPH. SHHH, a voice whispered from the darkness. I froze. I turned my head to the left. There, tied to a wooden support beam about 5 feet away, was Mark. He looked terrible. His travel suit was torn. His lip was bleeding. There was a dark stain on his shoulder where the bullet had hit him. But he was alive. His eyes were wide, pleading with me to be quiet. He had tape over his mouth, too. I stared at him. A mix of relief and fury exploded in my chest. I wanted to hug him because he wasn't dead. I wanted to kill him because of what happened at the bank. Why did you do it? I screamed with my eyes. Why did you pretend you didn't know me? Mark closed his eyes. He leaned his head back against the wooden post. He looked defeated. Suddenly, I heard footsteps above us. Heavy boots walking on wooden floorboards. Thump, thump, thump. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. Then voices. She wasn't supposed to be here, Jason. It was the woman's voice, the fake Sarah. This complicates everything. We can't just disappear if there's a missing persons report filed tonight. Relax, a deep voice replied. The man in the suit, the brother. Nobody is looking for her. The cops think she's a crazy stalker. Remember, we played that perfectly. But she saw you, the woman hissed. She knows your face. She knows the face of a dead man, the man laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Let her be confused for the last hour of her life. My blood turned to ice. The last hour of her life. They were going to kill us, tonight. The footsteps moved toward a door upstairs. I heard a hinge squeak, then the sound of a heavy door opening. Light flooded down a wooden staircase in the corner of the room. The man, Jason, walked down the stairs. The fake Sarah followed him. She had changed out of the trench coat. Now she was wearing jeans and a hoodie. My asterisk hoodie. She was wearing the gray zip-up I had left on the kitchen chair 3 days ago. I felt sick. It was a violation I can't even explain. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was stealing asterisk me asterisk. Jason walked over to Mark. He grabbed Mark's chin and forced him to look up. Look at you, Jason sneered. The golden boy, the success story. He turned to me. He walked over, his expensive shoes crunching on the dirt floor. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. Up close, the resemblance was terrifying. He had Mark's nose, Mark's jawline, but his eyes were different. They were empty, dead. He reached out and ripped the tape off my mouth. Ow, I gasped, the sting bringing tears to my eyes. Sorry, Sarah, he smiled. We haven't been properly introduced. I'm Jason, the black sheep. You died, I whispered, my voice raspy. Mark told me you died in prison. We went to your funeral. Empty casket, Jason said, winking. Cost me 10 grand to pay off the coroner. Best money I ever spent. Allowed me to move around, unnoticed. What do you want? I asked, trembling. Take the money, you have the cash, just let us go. Jason laughed again. He stood up and brushed invisible dust off his suit jacket. The money, he said. Sarah, the 2 million is nice, but that's just spending cash. I don't want the money. He pointed at Mark. I want the life. He started packing around the room. See, I've been watching you too, for 6 months. I've been living in a crummy apartment 3 blocks from your house. I've watched you walk the dog. I've watched you go to work. I've watched you have Sunday brunch. He stopped and looked at Mark with pure hatred. It's a good life, Mark. A really good life. Respectable, clean, and since we look so much alike, I decided I deserved it more. I looked at the fake Sarah, and her. Alina, Jason grinned. She's an old friend, a very talented actress. She's been studying you, Sarah, watching your videos, learning your walk, your voice. Alina smiled. She did a little wave. It was exactly how I wave. Fingers spread, wrist loose. It's uncanny, isn't it? Alina said, using my voice, my exact inflection. We're going to Rio, Jason explained. But not as Jason and Alina. We're going as Mark and Sarah Dalton. We're going to live off your investments. We're going to sell your house remotely. And eventually, maybe we'll have a tragic boating accident in a few years and cash out the life insurance. You're insane, I spat out. You'll never get away with this. The bank manager knows, the police know. The bank manager thinks you're a lunatic, Jason corrected. And the police. They have a report stating that a mentally unstable woman assaulted a couple at the bank. If you disappear, well, crazy people run away all the time. He checked his watch. All right, enough chat. Alina, go get the car ready. I need to finish digging the holes out back. He looked at me one last time. Don't worry, Sarah. I'll make it quick. I'm not a monster. He turned and walked up the stairs. Alina followed him. The heavy door slammed shut. We were plunged back into the dim light. I started hyperventilating. I couldn't get enough air. I was going to die in a basement. "Sarah," Mark whispered. I turned my head. He had worked the tape off his mouth by rubbing it against his shoulder. "Sarah, look at me," he said. His voice was desperate. "Don't talk to me," I sobbed. "You did this. You let them take everything. You told them I was crazy." "I had to," Mark hissed. "Sarah, listen to me. Jason sent me a photo this morning, before I left for the airport." "What photo?" "A photo of you," Mark said, tears welling up in his eyes. "Sleeping in our bed, taken from inside the bedroom." My stomach dropped. "He was in the house," I whispered. "He was in the closet," Mark said. "He texted me, 'Do exactly what I say or I slit her throat before she wakes up.'" I froze. "I went to the bank because he told me to," Mark continued, the words spilling out fast. "I met that woman because he told me to, when you showed up. Sarah, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I saw Jason in the lobby. He was wearing a baseball cap, standing by the ATM. He had his hand in his jacket." Mark took a jagged breath. "If I had said, 'Yes, that's my wife,' if I had tried to help you, he would have shot you right there in front of everyone. He didn't care. He's a psychopath." I stared at Mark, the cold indifference at the bank, the anger. It was an act. "I acted like a jerk to get the cops to take you away," Mark said, crying now. "I thought if you were in a police car, you'd be safe. I thought you'd go to jail for the night and be safe while I dealt with him. I never thought you'd follow us." My anger melted away. It was replaced by a crushing guilt. He was trying to save me, and I had walked right into the trap. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Mark, I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry," Mark said, his jaw tightening. "Just get us out of here." "How?" I tugged at the zip ties again. They dug into my skin, cutting my wrists. "I can't move." Mark looked around the room. "The post," he said. "Behind you, there's a nail sticking out. I saw it when they brought us down, about hip height." I scooted backwards. It was awkward. I scraped my legs against the dirt. "Tell me when I'm close," I grunted. "Left, a little more left. Okay, back up." I felt the sharp point of a rusty nail poke into my lower back. "Got it," I said. "Slide the zip tie over it," Mark instructed. "And pull, it's going to hurt." I maneuvered my wrists until I felt the plastic tie catch on the nail head. I took a deep breath, and I yanked my body forward. The plastic dug into my skin. The nail bit into my wrist. I cried out. "Do it again," Mark urged. "Harder." I gritted my teeth. I thought about the fake woman wearing my hoodie. I thought about Jason digging a grave for me. I pulled with everything I had. Snap. The zip tie broke. My hands flew forward. I almost fell over. "Yes," I gasped. I scrambled over to Mark. My hands were shaking, but I clawed at his zip ties. I couldn't break them, but I found the locking mechanism. I used my fingernail to jam the pin down. It took 10 seconds. It felt like 10 hours. Mark's hands came free. We hugged, just for a second. A desperate, terrified hug. "We have to go," Mark whispered. "He'll be back any minute." He stood up. He swayed a little, clutching his shoulder. "Can you walk?" I asked. "I'm fine," he lied. "Let's go." We crept up the stairs. Every step creaked. I held my breath, waiting for the door to fly open, waiting for a gunshot. We reached the top. Mark put his ear against the door. Silence. He tried the handle. Locked. Of course. "Damn it," Mark whispered. He looked around. There were no windows in the stairwell. We were trapped. Then I saw it. The hinges. The door opened asterisk outward, away from the stairs, but the hinges were on our asterisk side. "Mark," I pointed. "The pins." Mark nodded. He reached into his pocket and cursed. "They took my knife. They took everything." I looked down at myself. I was wearing leggings and a t-shirt. No pockets, no tools. Wait. My hair. I reached up and pulled out the thick metal hairpin I used to hold my bun in place. It was sturdy. sharp. I handed it to Mark. "I love you," he whispered. He jammed the pin into the bottom of the hinge. He used the heel of his shoe to hammer it up. Clang, clang. It was too loud. "Stop," I hissed. "They'll hear us." "We don't have a choice," Mark said. He hit it again, harder. The pin popped out. 1 down, 2 to go. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I kept looking back down the stairs, expecting Jason to be standing there in the dark. Mark got the second pin out. He started on the third, the top one. It was stuck, painted over. "Come on," Mark grunted, sweat dripping down his face. "Come on." He hit it, the metal hairpin bent. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." "Push the door," Mark said. "Push it near the hinge, hard." I put my shoulder against the wood. I pushed. Mark wedged the bent pin in and twisted. Pop. The final pin flew out and hit the floor with a metallic ping. The door wasn't attached on the right side anymore. Mark grabbed the edge. On 3, we pull it back and squeeze through, ready. 1, 2, 3. We pulled. The heavy door groaned, twisting on the lock bolt. A gap opened up, just enough for a person. We slipped through. We were in the kitchen of the cabin. It smelled like old bacon and dust. It was messy. Takeout containers everywhere. Through the window, I could see the backyard. I saw Jason. He was waist deep in a hole in the ground. He was digging. He wasn't looking at the house. "Where is she?" I whispered. "Garage," Mark said. "She was getting the car." "We need a phone," I said. "We need to call 911. "My phone is gone," Mark said. "Jason smashed it." I looked at the kitchen counter. There was a laptop open. I ran to it. The screen was on. It was logged into a bank account. My asterisk bank account. The balance read 000 ****. They had already transferred it. But I didn't care about the money right now. I opened a browser. I typed 911 online chat. No internet connection. "Of course," I muttered. We were in the middle of nowhere. "Sarah," Mark whispered from the living room. "Look at this." I walked over. On the coffee table there was a binder, thick, black. Mark had it open. It was a terrifying scrapbook. There were photos of me at the grocery store, photos of Mark at the gym, photos of us sleeping, photos of our mail. But on the last page, there was something else. A map. A map of our house, with red X's marked on the windows. And a note written in jagged handwriting. Phase 1, replace. Phase 2, liquidate. Phase 3, the cleanup. "The cleanup?" I asked. Mark turned the page. It was a list of names. Shelley, bank manager. Patricia, mom. Buster, dog. My knees buckled. "They aren't just killing us," I choked out. "They're killing anyone who knows us well enough to spot the difference." "Mom," I gasped. "They're going to kill Mom." "We have to get out of here," Mark said. "Now." We ran to the front door. Mark peeked out. The driveway was empty. The SUV was gone. Alina must have driven it around back to load. The bodies. "Run," Mark said. We burst out the front door. The cool night air hit my face. We didn't look back. We sprinted toward the woods. My bare feet pounded against the gravel, then the soft pine needles. I didn't feel the pain. Adrenaline was pumping through my veins like rocket fuel. We ran until my lungs burned. We ran until the cabin was just a speck in the distance. We reached the main road. It was deserted, just a long strip of asphalt cutting through the black forest. "Which way?" I panted. "South," Mark pointed, "toward town." We started walking, fast. Every time the wind rustled the leaves, I jumped. "Car," Mark yelled suddenly. He grabbed my arm and pulled me into the ditch. Twin beams of light cut through the darkness. A vehicle was coming. "Is it them?" I whispered. The car slowed down. It was a truck, an old pickup truck. "It's not the SUV," Mark said. Wave them down. We scrambled out of the ditch. We stood in the middle of the road, waving our arms frantically. Help, help us, I screamed. The truck screeched to a halt. The driver rolled down the window. It was an old man with a beard, wearing a camo hat. Whoa there, he said, looking at us. We must have looked insane. Me covered in dirt, Mark bleeding from a gunshot wound. You folks okay? Please, I begged. Someone is trying to kill us. We need a phone. We need the police. The old man's eyes widened. Jump in the back, he said. I'll get you to the station. It's about 10 miles up. Thank you, Mark gasped. Thank you so much. We climbed into the truck bed. It was cold, but I didn't care. We were safe. We were moving away from the cabin. I huddled next to Mark. He put his good arm around me. We made it, he whispered. We're going to fix this, I promise. I buried my face in his chest. I finally let myself cry. The truck sped up. The wind whipped my hair around. I looked through the rear window of the truck cab. The old man was driving with one hand. With the other hand, he was holding a phone to his ear. He was making a call. That was weird. There was no cell service back at the cabin. Maybe it was better here. I watched him. He was nodding. He looked into the rearview mirror. He made eye contact with me. And then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I saw his lips move. I couldn't hear him through the glass, but I'm good at reading lips. He said 2 words. Package secured. My heart stopped. Mark, I whispered, squeezing his arm. Mark, look at the driver. Mark looked. The old man turned the steering wheel sharply. The truck swerved off the main road. Hey, Mark yelled, banging on the glass. Where are you going? The police station is straight ahead. The old man ignored him. He turned down a dirt road. A familiar dirt road. I recognized the twisted oak tree on the corner. He was taking us back to the cabin. He's with them, I screamed. Mark, he's with them. No, Mark yelled. He tried to open the tailgate, but we were moving too fast. If we jumped now, we'd break our necks. The truck bounced over the ruts. We were thrown around like ragdolls. Ahead, I saw the cabin lights. I saw the SUV parked in the driveway. I saw Jason standing on the porch, leaning on a shovel, smoking a cigarette. He watched the truck pull in. He didn't look surprised. The truck skidded to a stop right in front of him. The old man got out. Caught him running down Route 9, the old man said, spitting on the ground. Just like you said they would, boss. Jason flicked his cigarette away. He walked over to the truck bed. He looked down at us. You too, he sighed, shaking his head. You really are making this difficult. I was trying to be nice. I was going to make it quick. He pulled a gun from his waistband. A different gun this time. Bigger. Get out, he ordered. Mark and I climbed out slowly. My legs felt like jelly. Elena, Jason yelled. The front door opened. The fake Sarah walked out. She was holding a video camera. Are we rolling? Jason asked. Rolling, Elena said, lifting the camera. Good, Jason said. Change of plans. No accidental boating accident in 5 years. We're doing a tragic murder-suicide tonight. He pointed the gun at Mark. Here's the script, Jason said. Mark, you found out Sarah was cheating. You snapped. You killed her, then you turned the gun on yourself. He tossed a distinct object onto the ground at Mark's feet. It was a gun, Mark's gun, the one he kept in the nightstand. Pick it up, Jason commanded. Need your fingerprints on it. Mark stared at the gun. Then he looked at Jason. No, Mark said. Pick it up, or I shoot her in the stomach and let her bleed out for 3 hours, Jason said calmly. Mark froze. He looked at me. His eyes were filled with tears. I'm sorry, Sarah, he whispered. He bent down. His hand hovered over the gun. But then, something I never expected happened. A siren wailed. Not a police siren. An air raid siren. Loud, piercing, coming from everywhere at once. Jason looked around, confused. What the hell is that? Elena lowered the camera. Jason, what's happening? Suddenly, floodlights blinded us. They clicked on from the trees, from the roof of the cabin, from the woods behind us. The entire area was lit up like a stadium. "Drop the weapon," a voice boomed over a loudspeaker. "Federal agents, URSURRUNDD." Jason spun around, aiming his gun blindly at the trees. I said, "Drop it." Crack. A single shot rang out. The gun in Jason's hand flew into the air. He screamed and grabbed his wrist. Blood sprayed onto the gravel. Men in black tactical gear swarmed out of the forest. Dozens of them. Red laser dots danced across Jason's chest. They tackled him to the ground. They tackled the old man. They grabbed Alina and slammed her onto the hood of the truck. I stood there stunned, blinking in the bright light. Mark was still crouching, his hand hovering over his own gun. A man in a suit, a real suit, with an FBI badge hanging from his belt, walked into the circle of light. He walked right past Jason. He walked right past Alina. He walked straight up to Mark. I expected him to arrest Mark, or help him up. But he didn't. The agent looked down at Mark and shook his head. "You cut it close, Agent Dalton," the man said. "Way too close." I froze. I looked at Mark. Mark stood up. He wasn't crying anymore. The fear was gone from his face. He stood up straight, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. He looked at the agent. "I had to get the confession on tape," Mark said. His voice was different, stronger. "Did you get it?" "We got it," the agent said. "Video and audio. We have them on conspiracy, kidnapping, and attempted murder, plus the wire fraud." Mark nodded. He wiped the blood off his lip. Then he turned to me. I backed away. My head was spinning. "Agent," I whispered. "Agent Dalton." Mark took a step toward me. "Sarah, wait." "Who are you?" I screamed. You're FBI." "I was," Mark said. "Undercover before I met you. I retired, or I thought I did." "You lied to me," I said, my voice shaking. "For 10 years, you lied to me about who you are." "I couldn't tell you," Mark said. "Jason isn't just my brother. He's the head of a syndicate I infiltrated 15 years ago. I faked his death to get him into witness protection. But he escaped. He came back for revenge." He reached for my hand. "The bank, the phone. I had to trigger the investigation," Mark said. "I had to make him think he was winning so he would lead us to the rest of his crew. The old man. He's the money launderer I've been hunting for a decade." I stared at him, the man I loved, the boring accountant who liked pancakes and fell asleep watching movies. He was a secret agent. And he had used me as bait. "You used me," I whispered. "You let them drag me to jail. You let them tie me up in a basement." "I had a tracker on you the whole time," Mark said, pulling a tiny button out of my hoodie pocket. "I knew exactly where you were. I was never going to let them hurt you." "You let him shoot you." I pointed at his shoulder. "I moved," Mark shrugged. "Flesh wound." He looked at me with those puppy dog eyes, the eyes I fell for. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I wanted to tell you, but I wanted you to be safe." I looked at the FBI agents hauling Jason away in handcuffs. I looked at the fake Sarah crying as she was shoved into a van. Then I looked at my husband. I pulled back my hand. And I slapped him, hard, right across the face. Slap. The sound echoed in the clearing. The FBI agent stopped and looked. Mark didn't move. He just took it. "That," I said, tears streaming down my face, "is for the crazy lady comment." Mark touched his cheek. He smiled, a small, genuine smile. "I deserved that," he said. "And this," I said, grabbing his shirt and pulling him into a fierce kiss, "is for saving my life." We kissed. It was messy, salt and dirt and blood, but it was real. "So," I said, pulling away, "we're not poor." "No," Mark laughed. "The money is safe, and there's a pretty hefty reward for capturing Jason." "Good," I said, "because you owe me a vacation, a real one, not in Rio." "Deal," Mark said. The agent cleared his throat. Folks, we still need to process the scene. And Mrs. Dalton, we found something in the trunk of the SUV you might want to see. I stiffened. What? The agent walked over to the SUV and popped the trunk. I walked over, holding Mark's hand. Inside, there were 2 briefcases. The money, I asked. Open it, the agent said. I unlatched the first briefcase. It wasn't money. It was diamonds, bags and bags of uncut diamonds. Jason was smuggling, Mark realized. The cash withdrawal was just a distraction. There's about $10 million there, the agent said, and since you 2 technically found it. He didn't finish the sentence. He just winked. I looked at Mark. He looked at me. Paris, I suggested. Paris, Mark agreed. We walked toward the ambulance, hand in hand. The nightmare was over. The secrets were out. And as I looked up at the stars above the pine trees, I realized something. My life was never going to be boring again. And you know what? I was okay with that. And they lived happily ever after, with a big smile. I really thought that was the end. I really thought we were going to Paris. I thought I was going to sip wine and eat croissants and forget that my husband had a secret life. But life has a funny way of kicking you when you're already down. And they lived happily ever after. I had whispered to myself in the back of that ambulance. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. Because 10 minutes later, the ambulance didn't turn toward the hospital. I was sitting on the stretcher, holding Mark's hand. The adrenaline was starting to fade, replaced by a dull, aching exhaustion. My wrists were raw from the zip ties. My feet were cut up. Mark, I said, looking out the back window. Why are we turning onto the highway? The hospital is the other way. Mark didn't answer. He was staring at the floor, his face pale. Mark, I squeezed his hand. He looked up, and the look in his eyes made my blood run cold. It wasn't love. It wasn't relief. It was guilt. I'm sorry, Sarah, he whispered. My heart dropped into my stomach. Why? Why are you sorry? The ambulance slowed down. It pulled onto a gravel shoulder under a bridge. The engine cut off. The driver's door opened. The FBI agent from the woods, the one in the suit who had winked at us, walked around to the back doors. He yanked them open. But he wasn't smiling anymore. And he wasn't holding a badge. He was holding a silencer. End of the line, the agent said. I froze, my brain couldn't process it. What but, you arrested Jason, you saved us. I arrested a liability, the agent said, his voice smooth and cold. Jason was getting sloppy. He was drawing too much attention. We needed him out of the picture so we could secure the assets. He pointed the gun at me. And now, he said, we need to tie up the loose ends. I looked at Mark. Mark, do something, you're an agent, arrest him. Mark closed his eyes. Tears leaked out. He's not an agent, Sarah, the man laughed, and neither am I. My world shattered, again. What? I whispered. Mark isn't FBI, the man sneered. He's our accountant. I stared at my husband, the man who I thought was a hero, the man I had just kissed and forgiven. Tell her, Mark, the man commanded. Mark looked at me. He looked like a broken man. I launder money, Mark whispered. For the cartel. Jason wasn't my brother, he was my handler, but I tried to get out. I tried to steal the diamonds so we could run away, so we could be safe. You lied, I choked out. The whole FBI story, the undercover agent thing, that was all a lie. I had to make you trust me, Mark sobbed. I needed you to get in the ambulance. If you panicked, they would have killed you in the woods. Enough, the man with the gun said. Where are the diamonds, Mark? In the bag, Mark said, kicking the briefcase toward the door. Good, the man said. He picked up the case, he checked it, he smiled. Then he raised the gun again, aiming right at Mark's forehead. You know the rules, Mark. Nobody leaves the organization. No, I screamed. I didn't think, I just moved. I threw myself in front of Mark. Zwip. The silencer made a soft, spitting noise. I felt a burst of fire in my shoulder. Sarah, Mark screamed. I fell back against the stretcher. Pain radiated down my arm, but I was alive. He had hit my shoulder, not my head. The man in the suit frowned. How noble, he muttered. He adjusted his aim. 2 for the price of 1. But then, something I never expected happened. Mark snapped. It was like a switch flipped inside him. The fearful, broken accountant vanished. He roared, a primal animal sound. He launched himself off the stretcher. He didn't care about the gun. He didn't care about his own injuries. He flew through the air and tackled the man. They crashed onto the gravel outside. The gun skittered across the pavement. I struggled to sit up. My shoulder was burning, blood soaking my shirt. Mark. They were fighting. It was brutal. The man in the suit was bigger, trained. He was punching Mark in the face over and over. You little pencil pusher, the man yelled, landing a heavy blow to Mark's ribs. Mark groaned, curling up on the ground. The man stood up. He looked around for the gun. He saw it. It was near the front tire of the ambulance. He started walking toward it. No, I whispered. I tried to stand, but my legs gave out. Mark was on the ground, coughing up blood. He couldn't move. The man reached the gun. He bent down to pick it up. Hey, I yelled. The man looked up at me. I was holding something. The red gas can, the one from the cabin. It had been in the back of the ambulance with the evidence. I had uncapped it. Catch, I said. I threw the gas can. It splashed liquid all over him, all over the gun, all over the ground. The man sputtered, wiping gas from his eyes. You crazy bee. He raised the gun to shoot me. I held up a road flare. I had grabbed it from the emergency kit on the wall of the ambulance. I popped the cap. Hiss. Bright red magnesium fire sparked to life. Don't, the man screamed, his eyes going wide. I really hate liars, I said. I tossed the flare. Whoosh. The ground erupted. A wall of fire shot up between us and him. The man screamed, scrambling backward, rolling on the ground to get away from the flames. He abandoned the gun. He abandoned the diamonds. He ran into the darkness of the woods, shouting in pain. I slumped against the ambulance door. Sarah, Mark wheezed. He crawled over to me. He dragged himself through the dirt. He looked at my shoulder. Oh God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. Shut up, I said. My voice was weak. Just tell me the truth. For once in your life, are there any more bad guys? Mark shook his head. That was the cleaner. If he's gone, we're ghosts. They think we're dead. Good, I said. My vision started to blur. I think I need a doctor now. Hang on, Mark said. He lifted me up. I'm driving. He scrambled into the driver's seat of the ambulance. He hit the lights. He hit the siren. We tore down the highway. I looked at the diamonds. They were still in the briefcase, sitting in the gravel, surrounded by fire. Mark, I yelled. The diamonds, you left them. Forget them, Mark yelled back. They're cursed. I don't want them. I just want you. I looked back through the window. The briefcase was melting in the flames. $10 million, gone. And honestly, I felt relieved. I woke up in a hospital bed. White walls, beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic. I blinked. I touched my shoulder. It was bandaged heavily. You're awake, a voice said. I turned. Mark was sitting in the chair next to the bed. He was handcuffed to the railing. There was a police officer standing at the door. A real police officer. Mark, I whispered. Hey, he smiled. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. How do you feel? Like I got shot, I mumbled. Why are you handcuffed? I turned myself in, Mark said softly. Real FBI this time. I gave them everything. The ledger, the names, the bank accounts. But, I started to panic, you'll go to prison. Maybe, Mark shrugged. But they offered me a deal, witness protection, reduced sentence for cooperation, since I helped take down the entire network. And since I saved a civilian. He nodded at me. I might get out in 2 years. 2 years. And what about me? I asked. Tears welled up in my eyes. Do I just wait? Mark looked down at his hands. You don't have to wait, Sarah. You can divorce me. You can start over. You deserve better than a money launderer who put a target on your back. I looked at him. I thought about the last 10 years. The pancakes, the movies, the laughter. I thought about him tackling the gunman. I thought about him driving the ambulance like a maniac to save me. You're an idiot, I said. Mark looked up. I know. You're a liar, I said. I know. And you owe me a really, really big vacation, I said. Mark's lips quirked up into a smile. Paris. Eventually, I said. For now, I'll settle for the vending machine down the hall. I'm starving. The officer at the door stepped forward. Ma'am, I need to take your statement. Sure, I said. But first, uncuff my husband. He needs to help me walk. The officer hesitated. Then he looked at Mark. He unlocked the cuff. Mark stood up. He walked over to the bed. He kissed my forehead. I love you, Sarah, he whispered. For real, no lies. I know, I said. 2 years later. The sun was hot. The ocean was blue. I sat on the patio of a small cafe, sipping an espresso. I was wearing big sunglasses and a sun hat. My name wasn't Sarah Dalton anymore. It was Sarah Miller. I looked at my watch. 2:00 p.m. A man walked around the corner. He was wearing linen pants and a white shirt. He looked tired but happy. He was carrying a bag of groceries. It was Mark. He had served 20 months. Good behavior. The testimony he gave put Jason and the rest of the cartel away for life. We were in witness protection, a small town in Italy. Nobody spoke English here. It was perfect. Mark put the groceries on the table. He sat down and took my hand. They have the good cheese today, he said, grinning. I laughed. You and your cheese. Hey, he said, reaching into his pocket. I forgot this came for you. He handed me an envelope. No return address. I opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was a picture of a burnt briefcase, the one I had left on the side of the highway. But the briefcase was open. And it was empty. I flipped the photo over. There was a message written in elegant script. Consider it a severance package. Thanks for the fire. The cleaner. I froze. The man in the suit, the one I set on fire. He had survived. He had taken the diamonds. And he had let us go. What is it? Mark asked, leaning in. I looked at the photo. Then I looked at Mark. If I told him, he would panic. He would want to run again. He would want to protect me. I looked at the ocean. I looked at our little house on the hill. I took the photo. I ripped it in half. Then I ripped it again, and again, until it was just confetti. I dropped the pieces into my empty espresso cup. Nothing, I said, smiling. Just junk mail. Mark looked at me. He studied my face. He knew I was lying. He always knew. But this time, he didn't push. He just squeezed my hand. Okay, he said, ready to go home. Yeah, I said, let's go home. We stood up. We walked down the cobblestone street, arm in arm. The past was behind us. The future was ours. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. We turned the corner toward our house. Mark told me a terrible joke. I laughed. And we lived happily ever after, with a big smile.